Welcome. Today I will talk about a game which I played in the first European online Shogi Blitz Championship against the player Linkuei. So this game was played in the quarterfinal of that tournament. I managed to survive the first 4 rounds against my expectations since I didn't play Shogi for 7 years prior to this week, and managed to beat 2 people who were higher rated than me, admittedly with a lot of luck. So there I was in the quarterfinals playing against Linkuei, whose real name is Laszlo Abuchki, and he is one of the strongest European shogi players with a 5 Dan rating on the 81 dojo server. I opened the game as Sente with my standard strategy of playing ranging rook. And I play ranging rook because for me it's a little bit easier because I don't have to know all of these Joseki details usually. Well, this game turns out to be different, but usually this is a little bit easier to play because you don't have to know all of these, for instance, Yagura details or side pawn picker details that you can get when you play static rook. So in the game, I did what I usually do. I went for Mino Castle pretty much immediately. And my opponent played a very aggressive strategy against that. So he directly attacked with his pawn and now climbed with his silver. So the idea of that strategy, as we will see in the next move, is to, after takes, he dropped the pawn, is to now just go forward with the silver and to threaten this pawn advance. So I don't know what the Joseki line is, and I will need your help maybe on that. So if somebody knows what to do here, I would be more than happy to learn about it. I went for the silver move, and after the pawn push, he took back, and this is now the first position which I consider to be critical. So maybe if you know, you can post in the comment section what the Joseki line is here. I was thinking about the following moves. I was thinking about what happens if I drop a pawn here. Well, in this case, I thought my opponent has several options. One option would be to go for silver takes unpromote, and after takes, he could just now take the rook. And yeah, in this position, I was not entirely sure how to judge it. And if it's some sort of Joseki, then maybe I should know about it, and I was not ready to go into that line. The other thing which I was slightly worried about was that after I took here, maybe he can even go for something like this, which also looks pretty unclear to me at first glance, because now I can't really take the lance right now, because then I guess such an attack is too strong. And my opponent is winning, so I think in this case I would have had to take back, and after taking the lance, now my castle is not as intact as it was before, so I would guess that this line is probably good for Gote. But I'm happy if you know more about it. So let me know. In any case, after takes, I therefore decided to go for something even more crazy after quite some deliberation. And the move which I played is bishop takes silver. So I give up material. I exchange basically the rook in the end against 1 silver. But note that, so now he took with a bishop. If he takes with a rook, so I thought then I can just takes back, and now I have this rook drop which attacks both pieces, and I can repeat the same tactic over and over again. So just the same takes, rook drop, takes, another rook drop, and in the end the gold is falling. So I thought that's my plan in case he decides to take with the rook. It's a long line, but it's very straightforward to calculate. So therefore I saw that, and instead he decided to take with the bishop. And now my idea is just what I played in the game: takes, and bishop drop to 5e. So again, double attack against the rook and the lands. And my opponent now went for also sacrificing his rook. I'm not sure if this is the best move. So again, if you know the Joseki line, I'm happy to learn more about this. But yeah, he took, makes some sense. I took back, and he played this knight move to 3c. I thought for a moment about taking the knight and then dropping a knight on my own with check and then the silver, but I think this attack doesn't have enough pieces at the moment. I just run out of steam. So therefore, I decided on a different move, and probably this is a position where my next move is a mistake. So another position where you might consider to drop a comment what I should do. So the move which I played is the rook drop to 8b with a check. But to be honest, I just missed his next move. So I thought he has to drop bishop here to save his position, but he can just drop silver. And right now he threatens gold to 7a, and then my rook is just gone. So therefore this was probably a big mistake on my part, but at least after the silver drop, I managed to get 2 pieces for the rook. So he played the gold move, which we talked about before, and now took my rook, but at least I have 2 generals now for this rook. So I think this is one critical position, and yeah, I'm interested in your opinion what my opponent should do here. I think one idea might be to drop a rook here, but then I thought, okay, maybe I can drop the silver, and then now, for instance, if he drops another rook here, still have this somewhat awkward looking move, but I feel that this kind of holds everything together. So I had the feeling that this is okay for me. So instead of doing that, my opponent decided on a more passive approach, a rook drop to 6b, which now attacks silver and gold. And yeah, this forces me now to give up the silver. But I think I found a decent move to do that, namely the pawn drop to 6d. When now the idea is, okay, I lose the silver, but I get a token, which might be a bit unpleasant for him. Still, I felt that like this whole combination here is probably to his favor. This is a position which I thought was probably better for him still, but yeah, it's really hard to evaluate. So one idea that he could have is to drop a rook here and attack 3 pieces at the same time. And then I wanted to go for, I think I want to go for token takes on 7c. And now, yeah, there are wild combinations. He could take the bishop, but he could also take the gold. And yeah, I don't know exactly how to evaluate this position. So that would have been definitely an interesting option for him. So instead of doing that, after promotes, he played a more defensive move again. So he had kind of a perception of the whole board, also aiming at defending his king. So he already built up a strong castle, and this is what gave him the victory in the end. So he attacked the bishop and also defended this pawn. I moved away with the bishop, and he played this rook drop. Another very strong move, so attacking here, maybe also attacking against my Mino castle, and at the same time defending this pawn on 7c. So a very strong move. Now I'm a big fan of this back rank pawn. So I dropped my pawn to 6i. The idea is to take out the rook out of the game. And I think, again, in this position, maybe he has something better than what he did in the game. But he wanted to activate the rook and to destroy my castle. So the next move makes a lot of sense if you see it. So he dropped the pawn, took, and now I dropped the silver. Again, attacking the promoted rook, he took, and now I attacked his rook. So now you see also a little bit the downside of the rook drop, which you played earlier on 6b, that now this rook is very vulnerable. So note that this rook is no longer protecting this square on 7c. So no matter what he does, the rook seems to be kind of trapped and gone. So what he decided to do was to remove the rook. I followed him with a token. And now he played a very interesting move, the move knight drop to 5e. The idea is, on the one hand, he disrupts this protection of the token, and on the other hand, he now attacks the gold and the token at the same time. So therefore, I felt obliged to take his rook, and now after takes, he would have destroyed my castle a little bit. So that's why in this position, I found, I think, a pretty good move, which is the rook drop, which now allows me to promote my rook and to keep my castle intact. So I don't want to move the silver away here. Let's say if I was to do this, maybe you could already attack something like this, because I can't take because of this bishop drop. And yeah, so therefore I decided to play the rook drop and to promote the rook. So right now I'm not exactly sure how to judge the position, but I felt like the worst is kind of over for me. Yeah, not sure. So he took the lands. Maybe in that position, could also think about just taking the token, because this kind of makes my attack a little bit slower, so I'm not able to just take everything here in one turn. But yeah, so instead he took the lands, and I now started an attack with the knight drop to f. Again, I'm not sure about this move, so maybe promoting the bishop would have been an interesting alternative. He took, I played the knight drop, attacking the pawn on 3d. He ran away with his king, and I took off his knight. So my idea was now to attack with two knights in hand. I think the first one is already dropped, but the second one is still in hand, and then to maybe get his silver to move from here. But now that he took the lands, he gets some pressure against my king. So in principle, I don't want this pawn to move because this weakens my castle. But I think here there's not so much I can do, because the thing is, I don't really want to take, so I think that's why maybe this knight drop was not so strong. I don't want to take there because, this bishop drop here is very strong, attacking both the promoted rook and my pawn here, and also the knight. So therefore, after the lands drop, I decided to drop another knight, which now attacks his lands. And he decided to sacrifice the silver to weaken my castle. So right now, he has two knights in hand. This is definitely in his favor to have that. But on the other hand, he doesn't have any generals, and this might make his attack also a little bit slower. So I'm not sure who's better here, to be honest. and he played this gold move to 4d. I think that this move is a bit too slow, so I feel that maybe a direct knight drop, so let's say 4a, would have been better. Sorry, 1d. Yeah. So after that, in the next move, he played this knight drop, and I defended now with the lance. He again attacked now my lance. Note that the castle is still a bit vulnerable, but I tried to take this guy out of the game with the pawn drop on the back rank again. So it's a move which I really like to play. And he now decided to start an attack by taking and dropping another lance. So now he has two pieces attacking this pawn on 2f. And I pretty much have to defend it with a knight drop. Now my castle looks a little bit strange with this knight in between, but on the other hand, he only has this bishop in hand. So therefore, he also doesn't have a super direct attack as far as I can see. Okay, after a couple of moves, like first this promoted rook to 9h. So what's the idea of this move? Well, we see it in the next move. He wants to drop the bishop and now have a bit more options of bringing the promoted rook back into the game. I ran away, and now he played this pawn drop. When I saw the pawn drop, I thought it's pretty slow, and that's also the case. But on the other hand, I don't have any obvious attack. So my main problem here is that I don't have any clear attack against his king. So maybe one option would have been now to drop the lance here to attack, but instead I chose to attack with a pawn. Same goal, removing his bishop, and he's pretty much forced to now take my silver. So I mean, I had the feeling in this position that my position should be good because the promoted rook is out of the game. But again, I'm not sure because his castle is very solid, so I don't know if that's really the case. In any case, I played the pawn move, which is maybe worse than the lance drop, and he took and now promoted the pawn to a token. And I now decided to go for an attack. So it could also be a decent idea to just take back the token. I think there was nothing wrong with that, but I went for an attack instead. So after the gold moved, I attacked, and he just took my silver. Again, just taking back is definitely an option, but I went out for an attack with the bishop drop right now. So maybe this is a little bit too much because in the end, so he can just drop a silver, and now I have to sacrifice the bishop. So takes, promote. I sacrifice the bishop, and now in this position, I have a bit of a problem because his castle is still very solid. So I think this is maybe a critical position. If I can still fight for a win here, then I should have find a very strong move here. So one idea I had after the game would be to maybe drop the silver here, just ignore my gold. But I have the feeling it's a bit too slow. So I mean, the main idea is that if he takes, then after a silver drop, I might go for something like this. But from what I could calculate, a line like this is just losing for me because his castle is way too solid and I don't have any entrance points. So therefore, I think the game is already over here because his castle is way more solid than my castle. So after pawn takes, yeah, maybe the silver drop would have been an alternative, but I think the position is now lost in any case. I took back, and after 2 more moves, he now decided to go for an attack with knight takes. Yeah, again, similar story. If I drop the silver, I think it's just delaying the game and not really changing the outcome anyways. So I decided to just take. But now he came up with a very strong bishop drop attacking gold and king. And after I dropped the silver, he followed it up with this nice move, lance takes, king takes, and bishop promotes. I dropped the knight, and now even more pieces are in front of my king, so my king runs out of squares, and he now came up with a nice mating combination, takes and tsume. By silver drop, my king has no more squares, and that's why I lost the game. Well, this was a very exciting game for me to play. This might be a position which was fine for me. Again, I'm not completely sure about that, but so for instance, after the lance drop here, I think I might have had decent chances, but in the end game he just played much better than me, and so he deservedly won the game and moved on to win the entire tournament. So congratulations to the new European online Shogi Blitz champion, Linkuei, Laszlo Abutsky. It was a pleasure to play in the tournament, and I hope you liked the game. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you next time.